When you talk about the technology, I haven't delved into it probably as much as I should, but it seems to me that technology was in place decades ago. In other words, you could have a blockchain type. You could, it wouldn't be operate with the efficiency. It wouldn't maybe have, as many nodes. And network law, the law of network effects, Steven Strogatz, a friend of mine who wrote the definitive paper about network theory with 32,000 citations in Nature. And this is about the exponential or geometric growth of networks growing as the number of squares of nodes. So yes, it would have fewer nodes maybe, but is there any physical law that would have precluded Bitcoin's adoption in 1987 or, earlier than this rise in the last decade or so?
I have a phrase. My phrase is technology fails until it succeeds. And that generally describes all paradigm shifts. It describes the airplane. For 1,000 years, people tried to fly, and then the Wright brothers figured it out. But if they didn't have an internal combustion engine, they wouldn't have flown, right? It describes mobile phones. People tried, and the breakthrough was like sufficiently powerful lithium-ion batteries, and certain chips, and some of these, codecs, right? Compression algorithms.
Yep.
So there are a few things we needed. In every single industry, there's always something that you need in order to break through to the next level. With the launch of Bitcoin, we've been working on the technologies for about 40 years previous. And it's well documented. Proof of work. You needed pretty good privacy. Public-private key encryption and proof of work algorithms. And you needed sufficiently powerful CPU chips, and there is some math involved. And people tried it. They launched a number of them, Hashcash and eGold, in the decade previous. This wasn't the first attempt. Bitcoin was the first attempt that was successful. Okay, so they probably attempted it, I don't know, 2 dozen times before, and they worked on different elements of it for 10 to 20, even 30 years before. It was bound to happen at some point when you had a critical mass of network computers, computational power, encryption algorithms, and they just put all the pieces together. And that's what Bitcoin was. And then it took 10 years they started a fire in cyberspace. It took 10 years of the fire burning for it to get big enough that it would work through all of its risk factors, and it would mature enough that an institution would be willing to actually put hundreds of millions of dollars of capital on it, right? Like the early exchanges got hacked, like Mt. Gox. Maybe the IRS could have destroyed it with the wrong tax treatment if they didn't give it the right tax treatment. It did get cloned. People weren't sure how the forks would work out. It needed to be attacked in every which way for it to mature and season. And as it got more mature, then more energy got put into it, and then it got tempered, then it got stronger. And as it got stronger, it went from a bunch of visionary retailers and, a motley crew of traders and hackers and retailers and true believers and technologists and speculators. And then it eventually rotated into institutions looking for an investment grade safe haven asset. But it took a while to get there. And it took not just 10 years of it living and competing for space and getting hardened, but it also took the COVID crisis and the pandemic of 2020, because that was a catalyst, right? March of 2020 was a catalyst for the explosion of Zoom and virtual work, and it was a catalyst for the explosion of Bitcoin, because you simultaneously had 1 billion people that needed a solution to a problem. And that was the platform that would solve the problem at the point that they needed it, and they couldn't delay any longer.
So I can tell you that gold that I have, and if this were a real Nobel Prize, it would be worth about $24,000. And that gold came from the collision of 2 enormous neutron stars. And that happened perhaps 5 billion years ago in our region of the galaxy. And the neutron enrichment, basically a giant atom, not of 56 neutron, but 10 to the 56 neutrons or something like that, coming together, the shrapnel of which produced the gold that we find. Now you're saying we're only going to have 21 million coins that are subdivided into so many Satoshis or what Bitcoin, but I don't think there's going to be another neutron star that, put it this way, if another neutron star collides near the Earth, we've got much bigger problems in our monetary situation. But, the fact is that's much more scarce than my friend down the street mines Bitcoin. In other words, how can we be so certain that it has this permanence and it has this durability and resilience that it makes it a true store of money the way that these neutron stars did for us many billions of years ago?
The history of money is human beings looking for some system that they can use to store and trade value, both with each other and with themselves over time. And we've used seashells, and we've used glass beads, and we've used gold and silver and copper, and we've used paper that represents gold, and we've used fiat, and we're moving toward using Bitcoin. In terms of scarcity, commodity money is when I use cattle. I mean, I trade you cattle or I trade you wheat. By the way, the early Americans, they used tobacco, right? That was,
they still do in many
Bay Area.
Yeah, they still do in prison.
They couldn't get money from the Brits, and so they actually traded bales of tobacco. The problem with commodities is that as the price goes up, human ingenuity and technology is incentivized to produce more of it, right? If I can do a thing, if I double the price of tobacco, right, then someone's gonna farm more tobacco, right? If I use wood, I'll create more wood. With some commodities, they're really easy to produce. The hardest commodity to produce that also had the characteristics that we wanted for money was gold. I mean, because we needed it to be durable and stable, like it needs to last 1,000 years, right? Some tobacco doesn't last 1,000 years, right? So some things are hard to produce, but they're not stable at room temperature and not malleable.
Let me ask now on the other side. So there's people selling Bitcoins, even though it's today you hit an all-time high. I found out earlier today it was at $40,000 per Bitcoin. It's up 100% in a month. What is, in your mind, how do you think about wealth? A lot of my listeners criticize me, for talking to billionaires, and obviously I'm only talking to people that have something valuable to say to a technologically astute audience like my audience, even if they may not be able to, construct a theory of everything themselves. They're keen on these big existential issues that give meaning to life. But what is the purpose of wealth to you?
Money is monetary energy. Monetary energy is the apex of all energies. I can convert kinetic energy, and I convert potential energy and nuclear energy and electrical energy, and even mass into energy, right? I mean, I can convert anything into energy. Anything that I can convert into energy, I can monetize. I can take $100 million of electricity and make it $100 million of money, and that becomes wealth. I am a wealthy person with $100 million of energy. I can take $100 million of money, I can convert it back into an army of 5,000 guys with machine guns and have them charge off, and I can generate a lot of kinetic energy and chemical energy, and I can kill a bunch of people and chaos, right? And so wealth is money, money is energy. At the end of the day, energy is conserved. It's all there. You can do what you will with it.